We were represented at the Service of Remembrance and the replaying here. Di, our President, did the honours. If you've been into the library lately, you'll see that somebody has been very busy, and that somebody is Julie. And she's been updating the displays, and she's added one in the large cabinet, Christmas, in Rhuddlan in the 19th century. And I was rather interested to see that on Christmas Day in 1867, there were 3 trains a day on Christmas Day from Denby to Rhyl and back. So at least they didn't dump you in Rhyl and you couldn't get home. So go and have a look. Go and have a look. There's some interesting little bits there. 2025 calendars are on sale tonight, as are the note cards, and the RNLI is with us tonight. Their sales table is over there. Please, please support them. Tomorrow, here, 10 o'clock, is the Treasure Chest Coffee Morning. 10 o'clock. I'm not certain about the car park, whether that's free or not, but I can't imagine anybody coming out to get blown away to put a ticket on your car. The reason I mention that, in addition to advertising the fact, is that the History Society is donating £250 to that charity this Christmas. It's a worthwhile charity, and the local committee work tirelessly and have raised thousands of pounds over the years. So there we are. Next month, it's not the first Friday in the month, it's the second Friday in the month, 10th of January, 7 o'clock here, and Adrian Hughes will be talking to us about Llandudno in World War II. So, apart from telling you that there are refreshments after tonight's meeting, don't rush off. You can, if you can't stop, you can take it with you. We have brought napkins, or you can stop and fill up and then take it with you. You know. I'm sure that our speaker tonight doesn't need any introduction, because he's been here several times before. He's a local lad, as I always used to say when I used to introduce him in other places. Anything to do with water, and Peter was there. A diver, a plumber, and a lifeboat coxswain. So, without further ado, Peter, the floor is yours.
Rang me up and said, can you come along and do a talk? The subject of the talk was to be a continuation of the history of the lifeboat. Some time ago I gave you the original talk, which I believe was probably before COVID, and that brought us up to that point in time. Well, since then, I suppose the biggest news, or more or less the only news we've had in Rhyl, is that we now have a new offshore boat. It seems quite odd, but we even call it down at the boathouse the new boat, even though it's 5 years old already. Now, this boat was the Shannon class lifeboat, and in the work up to us getting the boat, one of the biggest things about the Shannon class lifeboat, which was quite revolutionary, is that it's a water jet boat. It doesn't have propellers. So it's driven by water jets. Now, water jets have been around a little while. They were used quite extensively in America for shallow water running boats in rivers. And they're also used extensively nowadays in the wind farm industry, on wind farm boats. But for a lifeboat, it was said to be the first. Is that?
It's the alert for the... I just don't know.
Right. Anyway, yeah, but when you look back through history, we find that the Shannon class lifeboat is not the first water jet lifeboat to work for the RNLI. The first water jet lifeboat was the Gordon Warren class, and we had the Gordon Warren here in Rhyl. Is that on mine, is it?
It's the weather alert.
Weather, all right, yes. Very apt, really, isn't it, to talk about? Yeah, the Golden One came to us in 1939. She was a wooden 32-foot surf-class lifeboat, weighed 4¼ tons, and was 32 feet long, which meant that she was really quite a small boat. And she wasn't rated as being an all-weather lifeboat. She was non-self-righting. And there she is. She'd arrived in Rhyl on the back of a specially constructed railway carriage. Because of the war, she couldn't come by sea because a lot of navigation lights had been switched off. And you can see there by looking at the, in relation to the size of the crew that are on board, that she was quite a compact boat. The lady performing the naming ceremony there is Lady Scarisbrick, and she was the daughter of Mr. Nicholson, who designed the tubular class lifeboats which preceded the Golden Warren. The one that preceded it immediately, the Caroline Richardson II, was the longest serving lifeboat in the history of the RNLI. She came to Rhyl in 1897 and left Rhyl immediately before this boat arrived in 1939. So we were still rowing lifeboats in Rhyl in 1939. The naming ceremony that you see here was not performed until 1946, after the war. And as I say, the Golden Warren didn't have propellers, it had water jet engines, what were called the Hotchkiss internal cone propulsion engines. And basically they sucked water in at the front, it went through a turbine that was driven by the engines, and it spat it out at the back at some force. The engines were two 12-horsepower engines, and the top speed of this boat in calm weather and calm water was 6 knots. Which doesn't seem very much, but it's a lot better than you can row. So it must have been quite satisfying to turn the handle and push the button and actually have engine power rather than getting the oars out. She was a good boat, but as I say, she was non-self-righting, and she served at Rhyl from 1939 until 1949. She was pensioned off and spent some time in the reserve fleet, as most non-serving lifeboats do, before she was sold privately, and she was sold to a chap in Llandudno who converted her into a pleasure boat. He took out the jet propulsion and put in a single engine with a single propeller, and that is her now. She's on the mud just at the back of the castle. If you go over the bridge, turn left as though you're going up to Dolgarrog, and immediately after you go under the arch, she's on your left there if you want to see it. Quite a sad state. You can see here the construction starting to show through now the paint is gone, and she was constructed in a manner that was called double diagonal. The stem and the keel was made either of rock elm or oak, as were the ribs which surrounded the boat, and then over those would be planking would be laid 6 inches wide and 1 inch thick of Honduras mahogany, and that would be laid diagonally from the keel up to the gun, to the top corner of the boat there. A layer of cloth that was waterproof and impregnated with rock proofing was shrunken and pasted onto that, and then a second layer of planks laid in the opposite direction were laid on top of that. So these planks were at 90 degrees to those planks, and it formed a very light but very, very strong hull construction, so the boat could flex if you went alongside something in rough seas, as these boats did, as they came back on the beach as well. They had tremendous strength. And in every spare part of the boat, such as underneath the canopy here in the bow and the stern, would be packed with air cases. And these would be small wooden boxes. They were later made of ply, but of course this predated ply. And they were small wooden boxes made to fit all the recesses in the hull. And in this boat there were 198 of them. They were sealed and painted and checked periodically, but that meant that even if the boat was holed, there was still a massive amount of reserve buoyancy in the boat. And so they would keep the boat afloat. Now we see another rather sad picture. It's always tempting when you see a boat like that, especially one from Rhyl, and we're from Rhyl, is to wonder whether you can ever get it back to Rhyl and get it renovated. There is a fabulous boat at the moment up in Chemice Bay. And up until last summer, she was actually sailing and rowing in the bay. You could book a trip to row or sail a lifeboat in the bay. But unfortunately, over this winter, she's had a survey and she's no longer going to be fit to go to sea. Any refit that takes place in it is going to take between 3 and 4 years and is going to cost a great deal of money. So the people who look after it, they will sort of get sort of my age, so they're wondering whether they would see the end of the refit. And so it looks like she's going to become a shore-bound exhibit. But if you wanted to see an old Rhyl boat, that's where she is. If you go a bit further down the coast, don't go tomorrow though, down to Port Penryn, you can see the Rhyl, which was in Rhyl from 68 until 1990. She's in Port Penryn, still in the water, still in seagoing condition, and in, well, marvellous condition compared with that. And so, we move on to the Shannon class. Now, a lot of people wonder, how do you get a new lifeboat? Well, lifeboats, when they're developed, essentially are a better boat than the one they're going to replace. It's the whole point of doing it, really, I suppose. They're faster, they have more equipment, more efficient. But logically speaking, if you've got a faster boat, you don't need so many. And so stations tend to look on a new class of lifeboat coming out. They wonder straight away, are they going to get one, or are they going to be either closed down or downgraded to just an inflatable station. Nothing wrong with inflatables, they're brilliant boats, they do a huge amount of work, but an offshore station is an offshore station, it's sort of up there. And so what happens is, probably 2 years before your boat is due for replacement, you have to start mounting a campaign to try and build up some momentum to show why you need to have a boat. And in Rhyl, we've had to work extremely hard, because either side of us, at Hoylake and Llandudno, are 2 other offshore stations. Their boats are always slightly older than ours, so they're due for replacement first. And of course the temptation then is, if we put a new one there and a new one there, can they cover the area in the middle without us putting one there? And so we had to mount a terrific amount of work, get a terrific amount of work in to justify the boat being here. Luckily, at that time, the wind farms were still being constructed, with more projected, and we were doing a lot of work in the wind farms, bringing back people who'd been injured during the construction phase. Plus, we still had all the beach work that we do. And so, luckily, we were told in 2017 that we would be getting a Shannon class lifeboat. But Rhyl, being a deprived area, was asked if they contribute some money towards it. And when you think the boat you see there is £2.1 million. And so because we live in what was called a deprived area, they decided £50,000 would be a decent amount for us to raise. Well, we sort of got a bit fed up with that idea, so we said we'll do a bit better than that. We ended up raising £178,000. We had a gift of £55,000 from Steve Morgan, from Rhuddlan. And other money came in, and it was at times like this you realised the support that you got in the local area. At the Christmas time, the fundraisers asked the people in the theatre or the prom could they collect after the performance of Mrs. Brown. And the chap who was, I can't remember his name, the guy who is Mrs. Brown, he was asked on stage when he was on stage, if he could perhaps mention the fact we were collecting in the foyer afterwards. And he came on at half-time and he said, after the show, ladies and gentlemen, when you leave, you will see some people in oilskins with buckets in the foyer. Don't worry, the weather's not going to be that bad. But if you can, put a few bob in it for the new lifeboat. He said, and with that in mind, he said, I'm going to write you a cheque now for £10,000. Which he did. And then the week after, he invited the crew to go to Liverpool where it was appearing. Took them into the theatre, they went to the green room, had tea, coffee, beer, I suppose, I didn't go. And they presented the cheque on stage. So that was a sort of following year. Anyway, the boat arrived in 2019, and so did COVID. At the worst possible time, because not only did we get the Shannon Fast Lifeboat, a revolutionary boat, but to launch and recover it we had to have what is called the SLARS rig, which is a new tractor, a new carriage, totally new concept in launch and recovery. And up until this point, all the carriages and launch equipment we'd had were always adaptations of what was used on the boat before. There were just certain things that changed, but this was a completely new ballgame. We were all starting from scratch. And so it was a huge task to accomplish all this training with the restrictions that COVID placed on us. And at the same time the Shannon arrived, we picked up 5 new crew members. And they required training, and normally with crew training, one of the first courses they go on is to go down to pool and they do the sea survival course, where they go into the water in life jackets, learn how the life jackets work, because they're not cork anymore. Terrifically complicated pieces of kit. Of course, there were no courses going on. And we felt that they needed to use these jackets in a controlled environment before they went in the water, possibly went into the water for real, out at sea. And so we approached the local sports centre. They didn't really want to know, they wanted to charge us. We didn't make the point, it's the Rhyl Lifeboat and it's the Rhyl Sports Centre. And they said, yeah, but we've got to make money. And so I went and saw a chap down Kennedy Road who's got a holiday park there, a marine park, holiday park. And I mentioned to him what our situation was. And he said, well, nobody's on the park because it's closed. The pool is full, it's been renovated over the winter, it's full, it's heated, it's all ready to go. There's a set of keys, come and go when you want. And that sort of brings it home to you, the sort of support that you get over the lifeboat in a seaside sort of town. Right, what we've got now is a series of pictures showing you the boat and its equipment. And you can see there, the tractor is on that side there. That's the carriage in the middle, and the boat is being pulled onto the carriage forward. It's just come on the beach down here, that's where the sea is there. It's come onto the beach, it's pulled onto the carriage that way round. The line goes from a winch over the top of the carriage onto the boat, it pulls it onto the carriage. So when it's fully on and in position, the bow of the boat is pointed at the tractor. To point out at this point, that's the other bit of expensive kit. The tractor and carriage is about another 2.1 million again. So we're looking at getting on for 4.5 million with all the bits and pieces. So a huge investment in the town, the station and the area. The carriages come in 2 versions. One version is just a set of tracks that's pushed and pulled by the tractor unit, much as the old one was. The second version, which is the one that we've got in Rhyl because of our beach, the actual tracks on the carriage are also driven hydraulically from the tractor. So we've got effectively a tracked vehicle that has got 4-wheel drive. So it'll get practically through anything. Close up of the boat. Quite often people ask, what does 1334 stand for? 13 is the length, in metres. So it is actually the biggest lifeboat we've ever had in Rhyl. Around about 42 feet in old money. And she's number 34 in the Shannon fleet. The old boat, the one I drove, was 1224. She was 12 metres in length and she was 24 in the Mersey fleet. So that's what the numbers are. You see here the carriage. With the old carriage, there's a set of rollers and a pair of ropes pulled the boat off when you were launching. More or less catapulted the boat off. Hardly anything at all to go wrong. With this boat, a huge amount of stuff to go wrong, both on the carriage and the tractor. And there you see the tractor, the real beast of the thing. Built in Paris. You can see here the tracks, everything, the winch underneath. And then this is the unit that joins the tractor and the carriage together. It is pretty much one unit. With the old one, you could take the tractor off the carriage and use it to go and pull the small tractor out of a hole in the beach if you needed to. With this, you can't. If you wanted to pull anything out with this, if we were allowed to, you'd have to take the whole unit, the boat and everything down the beach to effect a rescue. So perhaps not quite as versatile as the other one was. And you can see there, there's about 6 6 inches of clearance. Up there is the fuel tank that we used to supply the boat with the tractor for fuel. There was 6 inches of clearance. We were assured when the boathouse was built in 2000 that it would be big enough for a shanty if we ever got one. There were still some people holding their breaths when they arrived the first day. And there you see the stern of the boat. So, large fendering all around. And here's the water jets. Those are the exhaust pipes off the engines there. And then down here is the jet drive. And as well as being very fast, these boats are rated at a top speed of 25 knots. The Mersey that preceded it, you were lucky to get more than about 16 out of that. So it does travel very, very quickly. It's quite spectacular when the weather's rough because it tends to leave the water quite often. And it's very, very manoeuvrable because as well as the thrust, what else you've got down here are buckets, what we call buckets there, that can be directed. So instead of the thrust going backwards, you can direct it so that it goes out to either side or forwards. You'll see a little bit of film later on of the boat coming to a stop within 1.5 times its own length from full speed. Obviously, you have to let the crew know you're going to do that. You can see here's quite a complex set of machinery. And what happens is they push this lot into the water. It has a boathouse mode, which is in there. When it goes outside the boathouse, the whole thing lifts up. So you've got more clearance for going over banks and so on. It pushes you into the water until the coxswain signals that you're at the right depth. And then once you're at the right depth, the back half of the carriage here lifts up hydraulically to an angle of about 15 degrees, and that forms a slipway. And then when the coxswain is ready, instead of 4 lads knocking chains off, as they did with the Mersey, the coxswain presses a button and the catch that holds the boat on the bow flies off hydraulically, and the boat slides down the inclined slipway into the water and drives away. So, yeah, quite a piece of gear. And as I say, you can imagine the amount of training. This is the inside of the cab of the tractor. No, it's not a spaceship. You can see here, this is the drive controls, all on a joystick with a computer screen in front of it. That's the winch control over there. The only problem they seem to have with this is in the summer it gets incredibly hot. Incredibly hot. Great for tomatoes. Not very good for crew members. But again, you can imagine the amount of training to get all this to work properly. And as we saw with the slide earlier on, the boat is pulled onto the carriage so the boat ends up pointed at the tractor. But when we launch it, we want the boat pointing the other way, and so under the centre of the carriage is a turntable. And what happens is once the boat is in position, the whole boat on the carriage swings to an arc of 180 degrees. So it's pointed away from the tractor, and then it locks in position. And you can see the amount of mess it makes on the beach when it's doing it. The Mersey used to take about 15 minutes to recover. This boat takes about 40 minutes. So quite a bit longer, quite a bit more involved. It's, people will say, well, the job's over, that's it, it's okay if it takes longer. But the problem is, and we used to find it with the Mersey, halfway through a recovery you get tasked again to another job. And that's when it will make a difference. If you haven't got 7 or 10 minutes ahead of you, you might have half an hour ahead of you before you can relaunch. So we're trying to shave off the recovery time in any way we can and still be safe. But it is quite a challenge. But you can see there the shape of the boat, very high bow. It's made of fibre, well, a fancy type of fiberglass called FRC. And you can see here the sweep, which is down to, it's quite low there, so you can actually reach survivors who are in the water. And when this boat is travelling, on the Mersey, a lot of the crew would travel on deck, except in very bad weather. On this boat, everybody is strapped into a seat. And the seats are on suspension, so the seats move up and down as you go over the waves. Right, this is the after deck. a lot more room than we used to have. So when you're doing a towing job, you've got a lot more room to work around the towing bollard. These lockers here, very neat. All our fenders and everything sit inside those and are shut down, all watertight. And a lot better if you're operating with helicopters. We operate nowadays with the Coast Guard helicopters. So if a winchman is coming aboard the lifeboat for any reason, he's got about 3 times as much deck to land on as he used to have. The deck on the Mersey that he would be aiming for will be half the size of this platform here. The upper steering position. So this is where the coxswain would stand when they got on the job, when they arrived. He would stand here for launching. You can see there the wheel, and over here the throttle controls and the bucket controls. Down below there isn't a wheel, there's a joystick at the lower steering position. But the coxswain will be up here for launching and recovery, and he will be there when we were either going into harbour and going alongside the pontoons and so on, or going alongside the casualty. Other than that, everybody is inside the boat with the hatches shut. The bow of the boat, looking back, and you can see here right at the extreme bottom end, that blue strop is what holds the boat on the carriage till it's tripped down the beach and ready for launch. And then when it's launched, stern of the boat is up in the air, coxswain presses the button, and that strop has got a hydraulic loading on it of 7 tons. So when you press the button, it literally flies off out of the way and allows the boat to slide down the carriage and into the sea. Got the anchor post, the towing post there, the anchor's there, the anchor chain comes up out of that little hatch there. And then there's the winch, the operator button for the winch. Lockers on the side here, which contain equipment for working on the deck. And it doesn't matter how complicated and technical the work is inside the boat, and you'll see inside the boat in a minute. When you arrive on scene, and there's a boat in trouble and you're going to tow it, or you're going to put crewmen aboard it, or take people off, the side of lifeboating that takes place on the deck of the boat hasn't changed in 150 years. It's still going to be exactly the same. It's still going to be wet, you're still going to be dealing with ropes, and you're still going to be dealing with very frightened, very fatigued people. So that side of lifeboating is exactly the same. You can get people who are absolutely terrific on push button stuff. It's when that hatch at the back flies open and you all crowd out on the deck to do the job. That's when the time tells. Right, we're inside now. We've just come in the hatch, which is off the rear deck, and we're looking forward. If you've got any questions, by the way, shout out. I hope I know what all the bits are. Small first aid kit here, fire extinguishers, salvage pump that we can put aboard the casualty to pump water out. And down there you'll see the hatch which leads forward into the next compartment, which is the next slide. Now in front of each seat is a screen, and all the crew members who are in here, the 6 crew members, apart from the one right at the back, can access that screen. So you can have 3 people looking at the radar if you want. You can have 3 people looking at the engine room telltales if you want information coming from the engine room. Or you can all be doing your individual jobs. Looking back now from the bow of the boat. So here you would have the helmsman, and you can see there the joystick is there, throttle controls and bucket controls. You can see how the seats are designed. The seats we had are pretty much the same as what you were sitting on now. There was a safety strap of sorts, but sophisticated. And as I say, they are on dampers, so they go up and down when the weather's rough. So the helmsman would sit there. The coxswain nowadays doesn't necessarily drive the boat on the way out to the job and back. He puts somebody else who's qualified in that seat, and he sits away. This side is nav 1, and this is the man who operates the radar. Behind him is the coxswain seat. That's where the coxswain sits. And then opposite him is where the mechanic, Callum, who was here earlier on, that will be his seat. So he'll be monitoring his engines, his gearboxes, There's water jets, all the information for the engine room. Behind the coxswain is nav 2. Here's the one with the navigation gear, the charts, the plotter, the GPS, and then we have a spare seat right at the back, and that would be for a crewman or the doctor if he's coming out with his own, or she's coming out with a female doctor on the crewman. So quite compact. The important thing to remember with all these screens and all the information that's coming in is you also have these windows. I'm a big fan of windows because windows are the only thing that find people in water. The radar will find a boat, but seeing somebody with the eyeball is the only thing you will do to find a person in water. No instrument on the boat will find a person in water. So it's always important to impress on people, and especially the younger crew members who like push-button stuff. They wouldn't let me near push-button stuff. 2 buttons and the second one I press would be wrong. So it's always important to impress on them that the windows are there for a reason and that you need to be looking into them. Right, we've moved down through the front of the wheelhouse now, and this is the survivor area. You can see again padded seats with seat belts. And this is crammed full of gear. We have oxygen resuscitation gear there, Entonox here, first aid kits, all around, various gear, small radios so we can talk to crewman who's put on a casualty. And all the hatches that you see when the boat is at sea are all shut. So the boat is split into several separate compartments. And we are now almost in the front of the boat, down below. Down here we see speed lines. These are basically a small missile with a piece of line attached to it, about a quarter mile of line. And if you can't get to a casualty, but you want to send a line to them via a tow line or a breeches buoy, you can take one of these up on deck, take the lid off, hold your breath, pull the trigger, and it fires a rocket with a line attached about a quarter of a mile. Quite exciting to use. And the other way sometimes of linking you to the casualty. Searchlight there, the searchlights are taken up and mounted on deck when we're working at night. Helmets for the casualties, veering lines for setting up a breeches buoy, and the newest addition to Rhyl Lifeboat, toilets. We have 4 female crew members on our crew now, and mysteriously, as the number of female crew members grew, the calls for a proper toilet rather than the black bucket that we all used to use have gained more momentum. So we now have a toilet. The one rule, as Calabash Mechanic has made, if you use it, you empty it. And then forward of there again is the anchor locker. That's where the anchor chain is kept. And again, there's a hatch there, which is kept done shut. So you can see the anchor chain coming down from the deck there. Right, we're going backwards from that ladder now. We are now underneath the wheelhouse. And this is the fuel tank space. The boat carries 1,300 litres in 2 tanks. 1,300 that side, 1,300 that. So they operate, well, they feed both the engines. They can be cross-connected if we get a problem with one of them or the other. And so the first job when the boat comes back to the boathouse after the job is to fuel up, because you don't know when the pages are going to go off again. Might be while you're fueling up, so big priority. And up here you can see a basket stretcher that we would put onto a casualty if we've got somebody who's disabled who needs lifting off. The engine room. Remember when I told you about the last jet boat, we had 2 12 horsepower engines in it. We have 2 650 horsepower engines in this one. Each one is 13 litres. Instead of what was originally an experimental design, Saab Scania, but they are now obviously 5 years later much more proven and seem to be a very good piece of kit. And you can see here the condition in which the boat is kept. It's 5 years old, and these photographs were taken about 3 weeks ago. And then after there again you can see another hatch which leads even further aft. And that is the jet space. The engines drive the water jets which suck in water at the forward end, goes through the turbines, which are driven by the engine, and fired out of those nozzles at the back. And at full speed, the boat is ejecting 1.5 tons of water per second out of each engine. So you can see that it's quite a potent piece of kit. The boat is rated at 25 knots with a low fuel load when she was under test before we, well, commissioning runs before we actually had her. She was doing 34 knots, which is getting on for 40 mile an hour. I mean, what you have to remember at these speeds is that things that happen, sort of if you're going down the channel to Boston, everything that's happening happens that much quicker, almost twice as quick as it was in a Mersey. Navigation buoys are coming down the stream as though they're sort of got wheels on, you know, so you have to be with your navigation out, especially in bad weather or at night, you have to be absolutely spot on with your navigation because you are travelling so quickly. This is a sort of a specimen display that you'll get on in front of the seat that you're sitting in on the boat. And you can see there all kinds of information. You've got the trim tabs here, which are 2 flaps on the back of the boat, which allows you to alter the trim of the boat. When you're driving along, you can either have the bow level or the bow down. You've got the port and starboard rev counters for the engines, your navigation input in the middle. CCTV, we have cameras all over the boat, so you don't have to go outside and see what's happening without spoiling your hair or getting your head wet. So, tremendous amount of equipment and information. That will be on the navigator's table. Small section of the chart with Rhyl down here. Colwyn Bay, Point of Air, and the channel going up and along to Boston, and the banks and the perimeters of the wind farms out here. And actually travelling through the wind farms at night at speed is quite an interesting experience. Lots of things to bump into. And there we see that's a picture taken on the 200th anniversary, which it was this year. The outfit's been going 200 years, we've been going 170 years in Rhyl. So we're very far behind the start of it. And you can see the whole team there, the offshore boat crew here, the inshore boat crew, or some of them, the DLAs, the fundraising team, the lifeguards, some people from the base. So quite a big team. We have more people on the crew now than we've ever had. When I was skipper of the Mersey, we had 22 crew. We've got about 36 now. And basically, one of the reasons for that is that people during the working day now are spread over a much larger area. You can have people living in Rhyl who are working in Chester or Manchester or down on Anglesey. And so we have to have a much bigger crew base so that if we get called during the day, during the week, we can still crew both the boats and the, excuse me, the tractors and the recarriaging and all that sort of thing. So quite a big team to look after, a lot of big administration challenge at times. Right, what we have now is a film. This film is some sound for you. It's been taken during service calls. I'll show you, give you an idea of the sort of range of stuff that we get up to. There's quite a bit from Mersey and quite a bit later on from Shannon. Boats ranging from an 8-foot inflatable 3 miles out to sea with a hull and a kiddie in it, to an 85,000 ton cruise liner. That's the boat I started. That's the boat that I drove for 40 years or so.
Okay, that's alright. 2, 3. You got it? Okay, down you go. You're okay. Right, John, I hope you weigh as little as your sister. Okay? There you can. It's okay, John. I've got you. Okay. There you go. There you go. Right, mate, right. High five, John. Good lad. Well done. Just down there, Parker. Casualties in pain, can barely move. We either evacuate by lifeboat in a stretcher. Yep, he's got room. Right then. The casualty is now in a stretcher with some delicate manoeuvring. We're just going to pass it in. 2, 3.
They're nearing to us, Rod. He's nearing to us.
Turn this oxygen on now.
Both casualties have fallen on oxygen.
Right, mind you to close your eyes in a minute. You're doing really well, Bethany. Good girl.
Something in the water that way, but it looks a bit more like a boat. How we doing? You okay?
A little lad. Okay.
You got it, Cal? Yep. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. What's your name?
Down.
Val. Got him?
Come on in.
Alright.
The boy's a bit cold. Yes, I can help you.
scene over. You alright? You'll have to be towed. Okay.
Okay, nice and slow, we're clear.
Right. Well spotted, Rhyl.
Without Beaver Yankee, yeah. We're just about to put her into the stretcher. So what we're going to do now, the boat's just gone to get some more Entonox for you. Just going to hit the beach now.
There you go. I'm happy. Yeah, right, okay.
You're not supposed to be this far out. Give me here. You got her. Get him on. Hello.
I know you get it regular, but thanks.
Oh, don't worry.
Alright. Give me a handheld. The quickest way to go is with a helicopter. Myself and the helicopter paramedic have assessed the casualty. We're both in agreement that the fastest route to have him checked out at hospital is via helicopter.
We're now alongside the casualty, over.
Condition, stand by on the lifeboat, over.
Come here. Come on. You okay? 1, 2, 3, go back.
Okay, right, what's your name?
Keep talking to us, what's your name?
It's going to take us 15 minutes to get there, no food launch, over.
Atty, come here.
3.
Go to the step aboard. Sorry.
Jules on the sea, this is Rhyl chapter 6 down. So we'll consider alongside the public transfer now to quick matters to your vessel to make a quick assessment before we do the transfer. Good lifeboat, my name's Spencer. Hello, Coast Guard, this is the lifeboat, just for your information, we are now on scene. We've got our 2 crew members on the cruise ship.
Hello, you okay? My name's Callum. Callum. You hold the handle, you bite onto the mouthpiece, and as you suck it, the gas will come through. Nikita, you okay?
We're lifeboat, to the scene. Good evening, sir. I'd like to thank you for your assistance. Stay safe. See you later.
Bye, Brigitte. Thank you very much. Take care.
Did you just say your kids on it? It's okay, you're alright? You okay? You're alright?
Come on, it's all right.
Fine, you okay?
Get it. Pull it down it. Come on, sweetheart. Come on. It's all right. See that? Come on. What's your name, sweetheart? Millie. Okay, Millie. We'll be out.
My name's Bridget. Yeah? So we're going to take you back to your friends now. Are you cold?
You with
Make your way in, mate. You're straight in, yeah? Are you two alright? We'll put the boat up.
You got. You warmed up now? You'll be scared, won't you?
He was the bravest girl I've ever seen.
of lights. Put together by Caliban, some of you will have seen here earlier on. Yes, quite a few jobs covered. The cruise liner was the Jewel of the Seas, which had just left Liverpool when a lady fell down the stairs, ballroom stairs, and broke her hip. They couldn't put back to Liverpool because of the berthing arrangements, so the boat launch went out, took her off, brought her back, and it was all lined up for what would have been an excellent episode of Saving Lives at Sea. The cruise company wouldn't allow it to be shown. Which we thought was a shame, because it did show that they took a lot of care in looking after the people if anything happened. Yeah, the little girl in the inflatable at the end, that's part of an RNLI promotional film. The chap and his lad in the little dinghy were about 3 miles out to sea, not right tickets. I mean, when you saw the part which showed some of the other activities we do, like the raft race and stuff like that, part of that you'll have seen a group of people on the beach in green t-shirts. That's the swim safe team, and that's under the husbandry of the station, where a lady called Leslie Wilde looks after that and runs that. She runs Finn's swim school, but she looks after sea safety, and she will visit clubs such as angling clubs and diving clubs and water ski clubs and help to promote safety at sea, pretty much, well, possibly do without a job. But yeah, they do the best they can. The raft race, by the way, is no longer happening for us. We got that mired up in the end in health and safety that it became too much like hard work to put on. The swim on New Year's Day this year, it alternates. One year it will be Boxing Day, and the next year it will be New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, all to do with the tides. We don't want people walking a mile and a half to get in the water. So New Year's Day, into the water at 10 o'clock, as I say, the sorry. Yeah, the entry forms will be at the back of the room. Get out of that one. If you don't want to swim, please come down and support us. We have hot dogs this year, which is a new venture for us.
Have you got any signing in forms for us?
Sorry?
Signing in forms for the swim?
Starts at, registration starts at 11, doesn't it? Yeah, we've been reliably informed that the air show will take place this year, because we play quite a large part in the air show, putting out the marker buoys and everything for the aircraft to fly to. And I think if the council wanted to admit it, the lifeboat crew on an open day in 2006 actually started the air show, because we hired an aircraft to come down and do a display, and it went on from there. The guy we hired it off, we hired a Harvard the first year for about £400, and I don't know if anybody here knows Anthony Hodson, who got the camps in Town, lives in Rhyl. And we went to see it about hiring it the second year because it was such a success, and he said, well, why don't we have the Spitfire? We said, Craig, we can only just afford the Harvard. And he said, listen, I do a lot of displays over water, and I know if it ever goes pear-shaped and I land up in the drink, you fellas will come for me. He said, you pay the air permit, which was £100. He said, the Spitfire will come for nothing. And it did for 3 years, and that is what spawned the Rhyl air show. The display he did was totally illegal. It was the height of the boathouse windows and 300 mile an hour along the edge of the beach. But it really had the effect of going on. The second year it appeared, we had people coming from the other side of the country just because they knew the Spitfire was going to be there. So it was a huge draw. We're glad the air show's coming back. We've got to have some encouraging stuff down on the sea for the girls, I'm afraid. So, yeah, but as you can see by the boat, the carriage and everything, it was a huge commitment from everybody, not just the crew, but the fundraising side, all that, to get the system up and running and to sort of justify the decision of the institution to put the boat here in Rhyl. None of these boats are safe. We've recently taken away a boat, the Douglas boat in the Isle of Man, because they figured the stations either side can look after that area. And Douglas was where it all started 200 years ago. So Quite a strange decision to take it away on this particular year. What can you do? Right, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
What kind of range have you got with the lifeboat distance?
The range, these boats now are 250 miles.
So the Isle of Man and back plus a bit?
Yeah. Yeah. It rather depends on how much throttle you have on. I mean, with the old boat, we did two 24-hour jobs, 4 years apart exactly to the day. And on one occasion, on the first one, we refueled 3 times because we were travelling at high speed on a search. And on the second one, 4 years later, we were out for the same amount of time and we didn't refuel because we were travelling much slow because the weather was bad. Again, on a long search. So as I say, she carries about 2,600 litres of fuel in 2 tanks. So,
Does the tractor unit still have a fully submerged capability?
sorry?
The tractor unit, does it still have a fully submerged capability?
Only in the event of emergencies. If you drove down to the low water mark, launched the boat and the bob in the meter went, everything went blank, you can lock it all down, evacuate the tractor, and it can fully submerge, and when the tide goes out, you can go out and fix it, hopefully. I mean, it can't drive around in the water. If you drive around, you'll see on the side of the tractor, you'll see a set of marks like they have on the bow of the boat, the draft marks, to tell you how deep it is. And when we used to launch the Mersey, you'd look over the back of the Mersey to the tractor that was pushing you out, and you could always tell when you were getting deep enough in rough weather at night because the tractor driver's eyes would get bigger and bigger and bigger. And when it was socialised, you thought, that'll do, off we go.
Yeah. I seem to remember
When
these
the call
also.
comes in,
Yeah.
depending obviously on the height of the tide at the time, how long does it take from the call coming in to being on the water?
It depends on the time of day. At night is the best because obviously there's no traffic. You can travel slightly faster than 20 miles an hour to get down to the boathouse, and then the coxswain will pick the crew. They nowadays have an idea of who's coming because they have a board that lights up, that tells you who's responding out of the crew. So you have an idea of who's available, which on a very bad night, if you're looking at going out in very bad weather, you may be out sometime or it's a particularly difficult job. The coxswain will wait for the more experienced people. It won't be the first who turn up. It will be the most experienced crew that we will pick.
How long does it take?
From the boathouse down to the water, if it's low tide, it would take you about 10 to 15 minutes to get down to low tide. So it seems quite quick. Well, it seems quite slow when you're on the boat waiting. When it's on its way down, you're itching to get going, you know. Because of course, once the boat falls off the carriage now, you've got 25 knots. With the old Oakley boat, which was before the Mersey, the tractor was actually faster than the boat. So we paid to go out on low water because you made more. You gained a little bit, you know.
What type of fuel do they use?
It's diesel, straightforward
Diesel. Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, 6,500 litres in the tank at the boathouse.
Thank you.
So we're not going to fill it up with pumps.
All the equipment on the boat, is it all inclusive when you buy the boat?
Yeah. The boat is, this boat was designed and built in the lifeboat headquarters in Poole in Dorset. The previous boat, the Mersey, was actually built in Lymington. They were built in various boatyards around the British Isles. The contract went out to build the boat to a certain specification. It was developed by the RNLI, the Mersey class, and it was built at various boatyards. And then they built the first few shine at a couple of boatyards down south, and then decided that they could save more money by building them in-house. And it's quite fascinating. Jan's been down to the Lifeboat Centre to see them being built. And they put the hull in first. The hull is built first in this fibre reinforced composite. Fancy type of fiberglass with Kevlar and all kinds of stuff. And then all the systems are put into that hull. The engines, the electronics, the hydraulics, all that stuff. And then the deck comes along, is lowered into position and glued onto the hull. So you have a completely open hull, like an open boat to work in. And then the the deck is glued on, which I hope is better than the glue I use for things. And then the wheelhouse is part of that structure, and then the internal fit out takes place. And then of course before any boat leaves pool, and before all the aerials and the fancy stuff on the top gets fitted, the boat is rolled over by a crane in the dock to make sure it's got the self-righting capability. So they actually sent us a video there, not a DVD, of the Mersey being rolled over as a sort of confidence booster. So you do what it didn't want to set in the tin, you know. So,
how many call-outs does Rhyl station get on average in a
it
day?
varies. The middle period of when the Mersey was there, probably from 2004 to 2009, we were the busiest in Wales and the busiest in the country on one year. And in those days, we were averaging 30 calls with a big boat a year and get on for 100 with a small one. It's dropped off. It changes from year to year. You may get nothing for 3 weeks and 3 calls in 3 days. You know, I mean, I think the busiest session we had 9 calls in a day for the inshore boat. And at the end of the day, when everybody had had enough, because it was the middle of the summer, we ended up all camping at the boathouse. It wasn't worth going home. And at tea time, when people started to drift away, we thought, I'd go for some tea. We got called out in both boats and to try and go for some jet skis off the Saturn. So that was probably the busiest day. But it comes in fits and starts, you know, you can never tell some years. Just requires certain weather conditions. You get high water in sort of the afternoon on a hot day where an offshore wind develops, and you guarantee the inshore boat is going to be pretty much out of control, you know. So the crews, what they used to do anyway, was all go down to the boathouse with the families, and we camp at the boathouse, we have a barbecue and play on the beach and stuff like that. Yeah, not drink, well. Basically, because we were there, it was easier than trying to force your way through the traffic. Yep.
Where was the old building which was shown in some of the early photographs you showed?
Well, there were 2
in front of an old building.
Yeah. The original boathouse on the prom was more or less where it is now.
Oh.
And an Ambles built one. There was a wooden one, which the Mac blew out of. And I think it was about 1955 Ambles built previous boathouse to this one, the one we're in now.
But did you come up High Street at one time?
Sorry?
Did you ever come up High Street? Or was
That's
that
Llandudno you're thinking of there.
Llandudno.
Yeah. And then we also had a second boathouse on the river, between the railway bridge and the road bridge on the west side of the river. The boathouse, because we had 2 lifeboats, 2 offshore lifeboats at one time. We had one on the beach, that was a tubular boat, one of the banana boats, Morgan or the Caroline Richardson. And then we had a second conventionally shaped lifeboat, the Jane Dalton or Jane Morgan was stationed on the river, and they would pick. They didn't have enough people to take them both out, but they would pick one or the other, depending on the job, and of course depending on whether there was water in the river.
And some of the very early boats, they were like, were they made of rubber or something?
No, they were made. The first banana boat we had, the Morgan, was made of iron, hollow iron tubes, like 2 bananas joined at the ends. Yeah. And then the second banana boat we had, the Caroline Richardson, which was there for 4 years. That was the old Poclelly boat. They didn't like it, we didn't like it either, and it never went out. So then they changed that in 1897 for the Caroline Richardson 2, and she was built in the same shape, like 2 bananas, but she was built of mahogany. Wow. When you look at the pictures of her, you wonder about the level of craftsmanship it would have taken to have made a boat that shape out of hollow mahogany tubes. And they say she was there until 1939. Wow. What a marvellous exhibition piece she would have been now if we kept her somewhere. We have a fabulous model of her in the boathouse. We have probably one of the best sets of models anywhere in the country at Rhyl Lifeboat Station. So at some point, anybody who's not come down, we'll get to the man here and we'll make some arrangements. Probably better in the spring now rather than the dead of winter months.
Yeah, we won't do it tonight.
What stops the jet drives from getting clogged at the front end?
What stops it?
The jet drives from getting clogged at the front end?
Nothing really. The filters that are inside the boat are very accessible.
Okay.
And so what you can do is you can cross-connect them, so you can run 2 engines off one filter system while you clean the other engine, filter out. Yeah, you must get Callum to show you the ins and outs. It's a fantastic plumbing system. I'm very proud of it.
What's your radar range? What is your radar range?
It depends on the weather. I can't say about this one because I've not used it, but on the old boat, the top range was 96 miles.
96?
Yeah, and on the shortest range in good weather, we were looking at one point, we went out in very dense fog looking for a big group of anglers in the Dee estuary who were in a shore fishing competition, and the fog had come down, and they were getting phone calls from these chaps saying, we don't know how to get back to the sand dunes. We're out here on the water's edge, you know, there might be a gully between us. So Hoylake came and we went, and West Kirby. And at one point we were touched on the sandbank, stopped on the sandbank, and our inshore boat was with us, and the visibility was less than from here to the other side of the room. And we landed some lads on the beach because we could hear people calling. So they went off, and we were following these lads on the beach on radar. Got it. There were certain people on the boat who have that magic touch, and if you really wanted that radar to count that night, that was the bloke or the girl you put on the radar, because they had that just that finite touch to get it performing to perfection. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Peter. I think a lot of you probably know that I was involved with the RNLI for 34 years. I worked for the RNLI for 34 years. And I mean, one of the things you don't want to be is a casualty if you work for the RNLI. And I used to go over to Cowes Base every week because I was then in Poole, where the head office was. And I used to get picked up by an Atlantic lifeboat from the hovercraft terminal and taken to the base and then delivered back to the hovercraft terminal when I used to go home at the end of the day. So we got into the hovercraft and Biggles got in and he started the thing up and we went down the apron onto the water, and it wasn't going straight, it was going sideways. And I thought, I don't like this, and we ended up hitting a yacht. So he reversed away from the yacht, and then we were ready to go again, accelerated, went forward and crashed into the yacht again. And I looked down by the side of me, and there was a hole in the side of the hovercraft. And I thought, I think I'm going to be a casualty here. But fortunately it got back onto the, managed to get it back onto the apron, and we were all taken off of this large hovercraft and put onto a small one, those that had pre-booked. That was the last time I went on a hovercraft. After that I went on the hydrofoil. Anyway, Peter, thank you very much, that was very informative. I didn't know a lot about the Shannon lifeboat. It came after I'd left. So I was particularly interested in hearing about that. We'll go on to the raffle. The usual major prizes. Yes.
First prize.
Yes, lots, whatever you want. You know, we need to draw a ticket to see who's going to win first of all. You've got your Christmas veg, you've got your Christmas cake, but we haven't got the turkey. Sorry about that. You'd have to be vegetarians.
Yellow ticket. 851855, yellow. Yes. No.
Well, I don't believe it.
And don't forget the lifeboat souvenir table before you go home. After you've had your cup of tea and your sticky bun.
gone. Thank you. Plum colour 351355. Plum. And that's third.
1, 2. Oh, you're going to go on that way, are you? Off you go. Robin Reliance on its way. I can say if you wanted the Christmas cake, we could deliver it to you.
It's the start of something, so it's got to be 2 minutes.
Pardon? I know the feeling. You sit there for too long, you want to get up and walk.
You take some back food tonight, it'll be over there, and it'll be down.
Well, there's things along.
Plum colour again, 401, 405.